Hi folks, welcome to another edition of Government Matters. My name is Mike Dobbs. I'm the managing editor for Reminder Publishing and your host here. And today I've got the privilege and pleasure of interviewing Chris Cignoli, who is the head of our Department of Public Works here in the city of Springfield. Chris, thanks for coming by.
Good morning, thank you.
So there was a lot of news about DPW projects at the recent economic development presentation that the city did. I believe it was last week. And I'd like to start off talking a little bit in depth about these three projects because it's going to affect a lot of people in a positive way.
Yep.
Once they're done. While you're doing it, I'm sure it's going to be complete hell.
Yep.
But when it's all done, these are going to be really good things. So, and I'm extremely interested in two of them because they're in my neighborhood. Mm-hmm. So first, let's talk about the Central Street Corridor project. Mm-hmm. And I'll just say that this would be a means of eliminating the sort of odd end of Central Street into Rifle Street and then causing motorists and pedestrians a little bit of grief trying to negotiate a left or right turn onto Rifle to then get over to Allen. Mm-hmm. So what you guys are going to do is to basically restructure Central Street so you can eliminate that sort of odd dog-leg kind of intersection. Mm-hmm. So what is the status of it right now in terms of, because I know this has been going on for a while.
Yes, it has. Yep.
So what is the status in terms of the construction or the planning or the design?
Well, to go back to the beginning, this project actually, the root of it was following the 2011 tornado. When we had the tornado, we had neighborhood meetings all throughout the city, the tornado path. And a bunch of the items that came up, especially in this neighborhood, were transportation issues related to Central Street and other areas. And I know one of the other projects you'll be asking about is Six Corners as well. But those are the two projects that came out of it. And it's money that has come from HUD to the city. And we have been working on it since 2013 when we started this. The project is completely designed. And what we've been working on over the last 2 years is essentially land takings along the corridor. As you mentioned, as Central Street goes down towards Rifle Street, it will essentially get realigned into the Hickory Street alignment. So there's some properties there that we had to do some takings on, which have all been done. We've completed everything at the city council level for those. The longest lead item is once we were done with all that, because we are impacting the Ruth Elizabeth Park, we had to go through the state park, then we had to go through the Federal Park Commission, then back to the state, and then to the city, which took a few years to do that. Everything has been approved. All the land takings have been done, and we have to do some tenant relocation. That is being done right now, and our goal right now is to basically start that construction project around July 1st or sometime during the summer. And the project will start at Pine Street and essentially go all the way to Springfield College. So it's going to be a reconstruction of the Central Street corridor, a new intersection at Walnut Street and Allen Street, and Hickory Street all the way up to Springfield College. And that roadway is obviously just as bad as Central Street, but the corridor in Central Street looks great with the new homes and everything there. So there'll be some new lighting. There will be the new roadway, obviously. So, and then we'll be reworking that Hickory Street area to make it a little bit more normal user-friendly rather than just a huge expanse of pavement that's there. But in your travels on the Central Street corridor, you won't need that area anymore.
Well, Central Street is used a lot as a thoroughfare for people from East Longmeadow, Forest Park, who are trying to get downtown.
Absolutely.
And of course, we've seen some traffic increases, especially with the work that was done on the viaduct on 91.
Absolutely.
People were seeking alternative routes to get there. Will there be any addition of a traffic light on this corridor?
Where it will intersect with Hancock, as it does right now, will be a stop sign controlled. There will be the traffic signal where it intersects with Walnut Street, Allen Street. There's a traffic light there now. It will be completely upgraded, full pedestrian crossings. We have the school there, we have the park there. And at the same time, we're working with the park department with Pat Sullivan, that whole corner where there's a building on the corner All that is going to get torn down, and that is essentially supposed to be the brand new major entrance point into Ruth Elizabeth Park. So that whole corner and everything will get completely redone. So when you're coming down Central Street, if you then need to go to Allen Street and up Allen or White or even Oakland, you'll come to that intersection, take a right as you do now, just in a different spot. And if you're going straight to Springfield College, you'll just be able to follow the road. But the whole thing will get completely reconstructed.
So once you are able to start construction, how long do you think it's going to take?
It'll probably take, I'm going to say 14 months or so in total from when we start. We know that there's going to be a winter shutdown in between. So if we were to start it, say July 1st of this year, we would probably end up being finished around September 1st or so of next year.
Okay, excellent. And the cost of that?
It's about $3 million. The other item that is going to happen that is actually started now is Springfield Water and Sewer is ahead of us doing water main replacement there. So a lot of people out there have asked, has construction started? Springfield Water and Sewer is getting ahead of us a little bit to get all of that done. So it's about a $3 million project. Springfield Water and Sewer has a $1.5 million or so in it for their work. So it starts to climb a little bit with everything that needs to be done.
So the goal with that is to open the street up once, fix what's underneath, so then when you guys come in to redesign the street, repave the street, et cetera, we don't have to come back and open the street back up.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, so that's number one. Now, number two in my neighborhood is the thoroughly confusing, but yet I guess we view it with a certain amount of affection, the Six Corners, quote unquote, rotary, which is not a rotary. It just sort of kind of looks like it, sort of.
Roundabout.
Roundabout, yes.
Small rotary.
But obviously, there are some traffic issues there in terms of flow. And right now, the way the streets intersect with one another do not really lend themselves to easy traffic flow. And again, a very busy corridor.
Absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about that. Where are we at in terms of the planning stages?
The design is complete. First thing we had to do is there was a couple properties there that we had to acquire, which we did. Spent all last construction season doing demolition. There was a gas station.
Yes.
That was all torn down. We took care of the tanks, any remediation that needed to be done. Over the winter, the project went out to bid. We have a contractor. So right now, the money for the project, a majority of the money is coming from MassWorks. So right now, we're just finalizing our stuff with MassWorks and expecting to get a schedule from the contract. And what our goal is, within the next month, they should be starting construction.
Okay, so in that particular case, are we talking about a traditional kind of, well, you could say roundabout. I was always raised saying rotary.
Yep.
Is it going to be a traditional roundabout then?
Yes, it is, and it's much smaller than, if you're thinking about the rotaries in West Springfield and like that. They are much, much, much smaller than that. Basically, there's not a lot of them around here. There really aren't. Some of the towns that have them have very small. Northampton has put in some up by Look Park and some of their central areas. These are about that size, a little bigger to be able to flow the traffic around. Because one of the things that we notice about the traffic there is a majority of the traffic is going straight. It's either going straight up Hancock, it's going straight on Locust, and then you have Alden turning in. But then the few people who are trying to, when you're doing that now, you're still having to turn in a lot of cases. So what we're hoping is that with the roundabout, and going back to the roots of this, that came out of the October 11th, or the June tornado and all the meetings that we had after that, that actually somebody threw it up and said, why can't we do a roundabout? And it really took off. The citizens and the neighborhood groups fell in love with it. They really did from day one. And they were the ones who pushed it. There were some people who were against it, but the neighborhood has really been the big force behind that. But like I said, we're going to be starting that this summer.
Well, we've got two neighborhoods that basically merge at that point, or have their border at that point, Old Hill and Maple High, Six Corners. And that is a very idiosyncratic kind of intersection as it stands now. It really, you can tell that people do get confused if they don't go through it on a regular basis.
Absolutely.
And clearly you want to eliminate some of that confusion. All right, so speaking of intersections and confusing, the X.
The X.
So I know that you've had meetings about this. I know that there's been a lot of discussion about how to make the X work better as a series of intersections for automobiles. And I'm sure when it was horse and carriage, it was a lot smoother. But as it stands, again, this is, I'll use that word again, it's sort of idiosyncratic. If you're from here, you know how to negotiate your way through it. But with everything that's going on in the city now, we really want additional visitors. We want tourism. We want people to explore the city, you know. And so therefore, intersection like the X, we don't want to confuse people. So talk a little bit about that in terms, again, where are we standing in the planning process?
Well, when we started looking at the X, one of the things that we really noticed is the high amount of commuter traffic that goes through there. Not just Springfield people that are going back and forth, but your Hamden, Wilbraham, Longmeadow, East Longmeadow, that are using either Belmont Avenue, some cases Dickinson Street, but Sumner Avenue that eventually then ends up going out through our Allen Street, connecting out even farther. So the other thing in that neighborhood down that is very, very unique is there is a lot of walking traffic. We have some schools there, obviously, but it is a neighborhood that a lot of the other neighborhoods in the city, not that they've gotten away from walking, but with that community, it's really, really grown there. The businesses there have been extremely stable, and one of the other problems is the way that the intersection is laid out now, there's not a lot of opportunities for people to cross safely. So one of the things that we really looked at was a few years ago, we started with the study phase of it. We got the study phase of it complete, and then we make a submission to Mass DOT for funding. It was approved for funding through Mass DOT. So last year, we started the design on it. We have completed the 25% design, and sometime probably within the next 2 months, we're still waiting on a date, we will be having a public hearing where everything will get presented to the neighborhood, and I'm sure we'll have a huge group of people there. We have at all the meetings. We've probably had 5 or 6 meetings as public meetings before. But essentially what we're trying to do is move some of the traffic away from the central part of the X, because right now it's basically a 3-phase intersection. You have Belmont, you have Dickinson, and you have Sumner, and during peak times, traffic really just backs up. So we really wanted to change some of that and then also give the opportunity for people crossing the street to be able to do it as safely as possible. So I think we've accomplished that with the layouts that we've done, and like I said, within the next 2 weeks, we'll present that to the neighborhood. Now, the project is, in money-wise, is huge. It ends up costing probably $12 million at this point. Yeah, it's a very, very big project. And earlier this week, we were with the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission as part of the transportation planning for the region. And what we're trying to do now is figure out which fiscal year it will get funded in. We are probably talking it's at least 2+ years out from a construction standpoint. From a design perspective, it's an extremely complicated design with everything that we have to do from all the utilities and the traffic lights. So the timing takes long. It's a big project, but the project limits actually extend all the way from the entrance of Forest Park past Ormond Street, almost to White Street, and then up and down both Belmont Avenue for probably almost a quarter of a mile in each direction, and Dickinson. So it's not just working in the little intersection. It's a big major project for the area.
Okay, in terms of that project, and again, knowing well that you're at what, the 25%?
25% stage, yes.
Are we looking at making any of the streets one way? Are we looking at closing any of the streets? Are we looking adding pedestrian mall type things? Because if I remember correctly, there's some of that was included in some of these initial meetings.
Right, and we threw out a lot of options to everybody, and everybody gave back their feedback. It's a neighborhood that I lived in, or I live in now, so it's, I know how the traffic works. What we really wanted to do is when you're driving through that intersection right now, you can't take lefts off of Sumner Avenue onto Dickinson Street in either direction. Traffic really needs to be able to do that. So one of the things we tried to figure out is, okay, how can we make that happen and make it safe? So right now at the X, you kind of have 3 lights right after each other. So what we're doing is taking those 2 outside lights and moving them back farther away. When you are coming into the X, basically what we've determined is that we are making Belmont Avenue one way out of the X in both directions. So when you're coming in on Belmont Avenue from, say, downtown, you would be directed to go down to Oakland Street and then take a left onto Sumner Avenue. When that intersection will get completely redone as well. When you're coming in the opposite direction from East Longmeadow, you will be directed one way to go down Ormond Street. And Ormond Street comes out where Benson's Bagel, Santander Bank, Forest Park Liquors. That will be a brand new intersection with a light, and that entrance for that facility could be completely redone, so there'll be one entrance in and out. Right now, at that location, it is a real mess for traffic. You have like 7 curb cuts in CVS, and that is where a majority right now that we see a huge amount of pedestrian traffic. So that intersection will have its own pedestrian phases, so people going back and forth will be able to do that safely. So what we've really done is taken those 3 intersections that are very, very close, spread them out, and then being able to drive through the intersection in the future. If you need to take a left onto Dickinson Street, you'll have your own lane, you'll be able to do it, and you won't have to kind of cut through the back streets as you have to do now to be able to do it. But if you're driving downtown, you'll be able to go down Belmont to downtown just like you did before. And if you're going out towards East Long Meadow, you'll be able to do that as well. But what we really wanted to do was get some of the traffic out of the center of it and redirect people where we can manage the traffic a lot more. And that's going to be that was what was really pushed as part of the citizens, and that's the way the design is moving at this point.
Now, is that project paid for by HUD money from the tornado, or?
No, that project is 100% state transportation money. It's actually federal money that flows through the state to us. We have 4 or 5 of those projects ongoing at different stages of the city right now, and most of them, they're all intersection or roadway related. The X by far is the biggest. So this is Mass DOT money, so we're dealing with one entity. When the project is ready, they pay 100% of the construction cost. We pay 100% of the design costs. We pay 100% of land takings if there's land takings, and then if there's some utility work, some of that has to be done. So we have we probably have well over $1 million into the game that we will have in the game on this project. So we have a huge investment, and then Mass DOT bids it, they build it, we're involved, they inspect it and make sure it's constructed correctly.
In terms of the land takings, do you anticipate a substantial amount?
No, and when we were looking at this, we end up, when we start to do transportation projects like this, there's no we're not taking a business, we're not taking homes, we're not taking, these are the land takings where we run into that we need a foot here, 2 feet there, you're making a corner a little bigger for a car to go around, so you got to move it. So while we may have a lot of them, 20 or 30, because there's so many individual parcels around there, they're just as time consuming when you're having to figure out, how to take a half a foot or 3 feet from somebody's property to be able to get a sidewalk and a curb and a driveway. And one of the things will happen through the entire quarter, new sidewalks, new sidewalk ramps, and entrances to the businesses will all get reconstructed. So that's one of the things that, for people who live or have businesses there, they end up with new driveways and sidewalks in front of their businesses as well.
Well, that's going to be a very huge undertaking.
Oh, absolutely. And when we're doing projects like that now, one of the major things is, you're not just designing it for the cars. You have to design it for the bicycle. There's bicycle lanes there. You have to design it for the pedestrians to make sure that when they're crossing, everything's ADA compliant, that the intersections aren't big. Right now, that intersection is huge. If you're on Dickinson Street on one side of it and you need to cross, you could be crossing Belmont and you could be crossing Sumner Avenue, and in a lot of cases ends up not being very safe.
No, I agree. It's a problematic intersection, and it's both that and the Six Corners intersection. It's like this is sort of like heritage or legacy issues, because these streets were constructed at a time when you did not have to worry about automobiles. These streets served the neighborhoods where like you just said, I mean, there was a lot of walking. One thing about the Forest Park area is it still is it has a mini downtown.
Yep.
You've got a grocery store, you've got other stores, you've got 2 pharmacies, restaurants. So it's sort of a satellite downtown for the city, and because of that, we have all of that pedestrian issues in the X area. So let me ask you this: if you had the magic wand, and you could make changes, is there anything else in the city that you see is an issue for traffic or is an issue for pedestrians that needs to be addressed in the future?
There's a lot of them. We have over 200 traffic signals in the city that we take care of. A lot of them are antiquated from a construction standpoint, geometric, small. One of the things that we're really trying to do is reconstruct a lot of those through using Mass DOT money, $1 million or $2 million at a time. They're time consuming, and when we go through the Mass DOT process, it ends up being a long process. It's just the way that the process works. A lot of these intersections really have antiquated signal systems, that don't have, some of them don't have detection. A lot of them do not have pedestrian crossings.
Now I'll just interrupt you. What is detection?
Detection basically is when cars drive up to it, it recognizes that there's a car there and the signal may need to change. Some of them, the older ones, don't have any of that. So, we really need to upgrade that. So we're trying to pick away at those. And the pedestrian part of it is so very, very important now. We have a lot of kids walking to school. A few years ago, they made some changes about the length of kids being able to walk to school. There are a lot more bicyclists on the street right now, so the bicycle accommodations are extremely important all over the place. And you can see by just was done downtown here when, as part of the work that the city did and as part of MGM, there are bike lanes everywhere.
Right.
And basically every project that we do from now on is going to have some sort of bicycle accommodation in it and pedestrian. And those accommodations end up making the roads bigger. You don't just have one lane, and now you have a lane, now you have a bicycle lane, now you want to make sure you also have an area for pedestrians on there. So, we end up having to figure out impacts to it. But, the traffic side of it is something that is, I would love to be able to tackle as much as that as possible.
Okay. Well, this is almost spring. I guess we are in spring, technically. So it's pothole season.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about potholes. I know that some communities use cold patch through the parts of the year where the asphalt plants are not operating, and everybody sort of complains about cold patch because it washes away.
Yes, it does.
When you take a look at the roads every spring and you start figuring out what you have to fill, what is that process like? I mean, how do you determine where you need to go to fill these potholes? Do you try to fill everyone that is in the city? How does that work? Because people always complain about potholes.
Absolutely. And I love that people complain about potholes, but when you complain about potholes, make sure you call 311 too. One of the things that I always tell people is when you drive by something, and whatever it is, a pothole, any deficiency that you see, a lot of people just assume somebody else will call that in. And so get it into our system. During the winter, we're working with cold patch. And actually this week, this past Monday, the 25th, the plant's opened where we were able to get regular asphalt material. So we started doing actual hot asphalt material. We work 3 winter shifts in the winter for our snow operations. That ends this weekend. So one of the things that's good is now we get all the guys back working during the day to be able to fill potholes. And street sweeping and everything else that starts this time of the year. One of the things that we do every spring is not just looking at potholes, but what else happened on that street that is the street really deteriorating completely. And then looking at a pothole. What's the cause of the pothole? Is it just a hole in the street? Is it part of a utility? Is it part of a manhole cover? Is it part of an old utility trench? What is the cause of it? Depending upon what the cause of it, simply going out and throwing some asphalt in it is not a solution. It may look like a solution, but it's not a solution. In some cases, we have crews out that are simply filling potholes with asphalt material. And we also have a machine that's called a road patcher that actually goes out and does a little bit of a different job. In the end, when people see it, it looks sloppy because of the way that the machine works, but it is much more effective long-term in working on something. One of the things that we do right now with regard to potholes is we start scouring the city, as I said before, about utilities. Because now all the utility companies are starting their work, so we then give them the list of like, okay, these are your problems, make sure you go out and fix them. These are our problems, we'll fix these. On our lists that we get from residents, if you called this morning for a pothole, I'm gonna say within a day, day and a half, it's done. We have 2 crews out doing it. They're scouring the city, so it's not like it's going to take a week. And if you see something and you call in and it's already in the system, that's fine too. We'll double check it, make sure that it's good. So I always urge people to call 311 with everything because it's the way that it gets in the system. When you call 311, a physical work ticket is created electronically. So it's like the second you call, within seconds, it is to us. And there are people that know me and there are people who know other people and think, hey, I'll just call Chris. Well, if I'm in a meeting all day and I'm not around, and then all of a sudden a day later I get your message, it could have been done the day before. So highly urge people to do it. We're going to be starting, our construction season actually starts April 1st. So we'll be out doing our roadway paving from roadways that are left over from last year. So there will be a lot of activity, especially with us, Springfield Water and Sewer, Columbia Gas, doing work all over the city. And primarily our guys are filling potholes. And we'll be starting our street sweeping April 1st.
Excellent. One thing that is always an issue for any municipality's Department of Public Works is equipment, and whether or not equipment is aging out and can be replaced because the equipment that you guys use is quite expensive.
Absolutely.
I know that Chicopee is recently, they just have finally authorized basically a garage to put some of their equipment in because they're saying that parking it in a parking lot is not good for it. But it's also expensive to be building garages for these large pieces of equipment. How are we doing in terms of our equipment stock? Are you looking at asking for new stuff this upcoming year, or are we okay?
I'm always asking the mayor and our chief financial officer for money for vehicles. The DPW, aside from just the stuff that we have, we're responsible for all the vehicles in the city with the exception of police and fire. We're responsible for purchasing them, we're responsible for maintaining them, fixing them when they're broke. And, and that goes from the, smallest, the small car that the code enforcement people use, all the way up to the largest dump truck and aerial buckets that the park department uses. So we're in charge of all that, and our responsibility is to make sure that that equipment is obviously in good shape to be able to use, but also looking at its life expectancy and turnover and making sure that we have a program to replace vehicles. About a year ago, we just spent about $3 million on what we call heavy duty equipment, aerial buckets, dump trucks, some paving equipment, large vehicles like that. So our major equipment in the city is in very, very good shape. We are now working with the mayor on kind of what we call the light duty. There are a lot of passenger vehicles in the city that are used by all the different departments and, small pickup trucks and things like that different departments use. The DPW, we do not have a place to house our equipment. Everything is outside, which, probably takes a good 20% off of the life expectancy of a vehicle. And probably the most complicated pieces of equipment we have in the city are our trash trucks with 30 plus of those that, they're in use virtually every day. They are extremely high-end mechanical pieces of equipment. So we are always looking to replace those over a period of time. We have a replacement schedule. The difficulty that we always run into is how much do we have for a particular year to buy particular vehicles. But the heavy duty stuff right now in the city, we're in very, very good shape with. We just went through a purchasing round with that. So we are in very, very good shape with that. Being able to get all of our dump trucks working, especially during snow. But as we move into the spring with the equipment that we have, we're in very, very good shape with that.
Excellent. So if people see a pothole, call 311.
You see anything that is of concern to you, whether it's trash related, pothole repair, a street light that's out. Street lights are not the city, but we make sure that they get to Western Mass, or now Eversource.
Right.
Make sure that it gets to the right place. Anything that you see that's related to the municipality of Springfield that you have a concern with, always call 311. They will make sure it gets to the right location. But potholes, definitely call 311.
Okay. So you heard it here first, folks. 311 for the potholes.
Yes.
Putting them up on social media doesn't get them filled.
Correct.
Calling the city will get them filled.
Correct. Yeah, a lot of people like to post things on Facebook pages and things like that and want to know why we haven't fixed it. And it's like, well, I don't know who you are. I'm not on your Facebook page. And
exactly.
311.
So, Chris, thanks you much for coming in today. We appreciate it.
You're very, very welcome.
And folks, thanks very much for watching another edition of Government Matters here on Focus Springfield.